Hey guys, welcome to week 2. We've got a lot to talk about this week. We got some breaking news, some injuries, and some crazy performances this past week. Let's just jump right into it. Week 2 gave us some interesting performances from many teams and players who we expected to score did or didn't, and players that we didn't expect to score did a lot of that. We wanted to start with breaking news this week, really breaking news. Late Saturday night that the Browns announced that they were going to release Josh Gordon, which comes to a huge surprise to us fantasy owners because we thought he was getting back into a rhythm, saw him play, even caught a touchdown last week, but apparently he was on thin ice with the organizations from all the substance abuse and the time not being on the field. He was healthy on Friday, they said, and then he came in Saturday complaining of a hamstring injury that apparently wasn't related to football. So I guess the management decided that that was enough. They're just going to get rid of him, you know, and it's hard for us as fantasy owners because we're hoping for him. We've been waiting for him. He's such deep threat, and he's such tremendous talent to be wasted. If you have Josh Gordon on your in your lineup, as a lot of us did, you know, you're going to want to take him out. I'm not sure. I would wait a couple weeks, maybe a week before you drop him, because he may be picked up as soon as he gets released on Monday. He may be picked up right away from these wide receiver hungry teams such as Dallas and some other teams that are interested. I think they said at least 5 other teams were interested in his services. If you have him, you may want to hold on to him for this week and then see what happens. But if not, I would just go ahead and drop him. I would say he's droppable at this point, especially in those redraft leagues when you can pick up somebody else. That also means that Antonio Callaway is going to have to step up. They're going to insert him into the lineup, the starting lineup for this week. So if you have him and you wanted to take a flyer on him, it might not be a bad idea. A little bit of sad news this week for those Joe Mixon owners. After the Thursday night game, he complained. He was in and out of the game complaining of a knee issue. He came back into the game, he played some more, and he looked pretty strong. But what we found out this week was that he's going to have a small knee surgery, and that will put him out 2 to 4 weeks. So it's not enough to drop him unless you're in redraft leagues or if you have his handcuffed Gio Bernard, but he's going to be out for at least 2 to 4 weeks. At least that's the latest that they're reporting. So it's some sad news coming out. He looked really good. I liked his running style. If you're joining us for the first time, or if you're joining us for each week but you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe to our channel and also hit that bell notification icon so that way you can be updated each and every week that we post new videos. So we're going to post one at least twice a week, one for the Thursday games or the special event games like the Saturday or the London games, and then we're also going to post one for Sunday with our projections and kind of our fun way that we do these things, so our MVPs for the week. So if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and continue to check us out. To the next one, we have that Get the Biscuit segment where we take the MVP of the past week and we give them a little light. If you're not sure what Give Me the Biscuit is or Get the Biscuit is, we explained in week 1 that in my family, it's a large family, there's usually 1 biscuit left over, and the person who was the best that week or that day got that extra biscuit. The person that I really felt that wanted this extra biscuit this week, and that person is Ryan Fitzpatrick. I know, right? Really out of nowhere. He just came out and lit up the New Orleans Saints. Kind of makes me wonder about the defense a little bit. He threw for 417 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, ran for 36 yards, and another touchdown, which put him as the highest fantasy scorer of that week. No one knew that it was going to happen. He kind of comes out of nowhere with these huge performances. Does that mean you're going to trust him the next week? I don't know. It's Ryan Fitzpatrick. We just don't know. He deserves to get that extra biscuit this week. man, he put on a show. He lit it up. You know, he did get the W. He did a great job. That leads us on to our players that didn't quite make the cut or their teams didn't win, but still put out amazing fantasy stats. We get that extra gravy. As in week 1, our first video, I told you that we always had a little bit extra gravy at our dinner table, and man, who doesn't love a good gravy? And really pouring that gravy on those vegetables as a kid really made the vegetables go down easily. So these are the players that did well. Their teams may or may not have won, but because of their stat lines, put them at a high fantasy points. That's the reason why they get that extra gravy. First up, we're going to go through each one of the individual positions and who got that extra gravy. First up is quarterback Drew Brees. The other half of that game, the one that didn't come away with a win, he put up 439 yards, passed for 3 touchdowns, and he also put in a 2-point conversion. And that moves us on to our running back. And our running back that gets that extra gravy is Alvin Kamara. He scored the #1 amount of fantasy points on a standard scale. He rushed for only 29 yards in the receiving game. That's where he made his mark, catching 112 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 2-point conversion. So he was our highest rated running back for this week. Our highest rated wide receiver was Tyreek Hill. He accounted for 169 yards, 2 touchdowns, and also ran in a special teams touchdown. So if you're in those leagues that allows individual players to get the special teams, he really did well for you that week. Or in my case, he beat me that week. He scored 26 points for my opponent, and I lost because of it. So thanks. That moves us on to our tight end, Rob Gronkowski. I know Jared Cook, put up a huge amount of yards, 180 yards, but mostly that was in garbage time, whenever they were already losing. It's still amazing that he was able to put up so many yards, and I don't want to discount that. Person that came away with the most amount of yards and touchdown would have to be Rob Gronkowski. He put up 123 yards and a touchdown. And that moves us on to our kicker, and that is Greg Zuerlein for the Los Angeles Rams. He had 3 extra points. He hit 3 field goals from the 20 to 29 yard range, and he also hit 1 field goal from the 50+ range, and that was the highest rating or highest amount of fantasy points for a kicker that week. And our defense would be New York Jets. They put up 20+ fantasy points. Man, they really rocked Matthew Stafford and the Lions. I'm hoping that's just a fluke. They said in a quote on Twitter and on NFL.com that they knew what he was going to, they knew what plays that he was going to run, so that's how they were able to get him so bad. They put the most amount of points up this week, with a few others like the Vikings coming in a close second. Those are the people that deserve that extra gravy. Take it. That moves us to our next segment where we call in players that we want in our lineup. We call them calling it home, using that bell, that dinner bell, to bring him in.
Come and get it! Come and get it! Dinner!
First, Patrick Mahomes. Now, he did really well last week, and he came a close for that gravy spot. If Brees hadn't put up the numbers that he had, he would have definitely got that extra gravy. But you can tell that Andy Reid really knows his quarterbacks. I want him in a matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers that looks to be a high-flying affair. He's going to put up some good numbers. As long as he continues like he did last time, I think he'll do really well this week against that Pittsburgh Steelers defense. My running back that I want to call home, and I want to keep riding this train, is Alvin Kamara. He obviously put up the #1 stats for a running back last week. They're going to use Alvin Kamara in the passing game and the running game since Mark Ingram's out. I know they have some other pounders that go in there for running back, but they'll continually use Alvin Kamara out of the backfield and screens to kind of keep the Browns defense guessing while hitting Michael Thomas over the top. So look for Alvin Kamara to have another good week this week. For my wide receiver is Juju Smith-Schuster out of Pittsburgh, because that's going to be a high scoring affair between both teams. Obviously the other teams, Antonio Brown's kind of given. You lock and load him every single week, doesn't matter who he's up against. But Juju, I think, is going to really benefit from this. You know, they're going to pay a lot of attention to Antonio Brown, which they should, but they're also going to pay attention to James Conner because James Conner did so well in the first week. They're going to have to pay attention to him. So who does that leave? The tight end, yes, but mainly Juju Smith-Schuster. I look for him to get an amazing amount of yards this week and a possible couple of touchdowns against the Kansas City Chiefs defense. That moves me on to my tight end. I know he's not a huge popular pick, but I like Will Dissly this week for Seattle. He put up great numbers in that offense, and he's kind of taken the role that Jimmy Graham took for that offense, and he's kind of a safety blanket for Russell Wilson, especially now that Doug Baldwin is hurt, and there's many people that are hurt, especially on the defensive side. It looks like they're going to have to be passing a lot again, and that tight end is kind of like that safety blanket, and I think he'll put up the same amount, if not better numbers this week than he did last week, so look for that. My kicker this week that I want to call home is Brandon McManus, mainly because he's playing in Denver, and that higher altitude makes it a lot easier for these long-range kicks, and especially in leagues like mine, if you get a certain amount of yards, it gives you bonus points, and having a field goal hit from 50 plus is just a major amount of bonus points for us. The defense is Los Angeles Rams. They did really well against the Raiders. Man, they took advantage of Carr, made Carr look like he was a rookie from some unknown school. They really demolished him. They took away the running game for the most part. See that happening again this week. They'll be going against Arizona, and for David Johnson owners like me, myself, I really don't want to, but the reality is, they're, with Donald and Sue, and then of course those lockdown corners, Talib and Peters, they're gonna really shut them down this week and make Bradford throw it. And it does not look good for the Arizona Cardinals. Alright, for our people that we do not want in our lineup, I've only got one today, and it's mainly because of a situation from week 1, and that person is Robbie Anderson. I want him out of my lineup.
And I said, get away from here. Get.
Mainly because of the emergence of Quincy Enunwa. Since he's healthy, he took almost all the targets, 10 plus targets. He really had a connection with Sam Darnold and became his safety blanket. He made plays. I know Robbie Anderson saved himself with a touchdown last week, but he saw very few targets, and I think that's going to continue. I think Anderson's going to take a back seat to Enunwa, and that running game and the defense is really going to kind of take over. I really don't like him this week, so if you have him, have no other options, you go ahead and start him, because technically he's a number 1, but it seems like Quincy Enunwa is kind of taken over the offense. There's other players like, again, Emmanuel Sanders. I told you last week, there are other players like Emmanuel Sanders that you can plug in, and Emmanuel Sanders did really good last week. Jarvis Landry, that type of player is definitely who you want in your lineup. That moves us on to our next segment, which we like to call, What? That's Crazy. I know this is such an unpopular opinion right now, but my crazy projection is that Ryan Fitzpatrick does it again. Because we've been talking like, oh, that was such a big deal, but he's not going to ever do it again. There's no way, and especially against that defense, he's not going to throw for over 400 yards. But that's my crazy projection. He does it again. He proves us wrong. He throws for over 400 yards, 3+ TDs, total TDs, and I kind of want to see it. That's the reason why I'm giving it as my projection, my crazy projection this week, because I want to see him do it. Something about that beard is magical, and I want to see him win again. Ultimately, I just want to know, what do you think? What do you think that the crazy projection should be? Who do you want in your lineup? Who do you not want in your lineup? Do you think Robbie Anderson will take over again this week over Enunwa, or do you think it's going to be continuing down the same path? Let me know in the comments below, and like always, thanks for supporting. Hit that subscribe button and that bell notification icon so you do not miss each episode. Thanks again, guys.